Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of our Webflow optimization journey. Do you guys know this awkward elevator music? Yeah, that one. Now, this episode will not be boring, I promise you. So in today's episode, we're gonna cover some amazing techniques on optimizing our SVG. We're gonna build our free boxes sections, and we basically talk more about how to structure our HTML, right? So before diving into those, let's roll the intro. Alright, so if you do remember, in our previous episodes we covered the fonts, we covered we've built our header, our full width section, we talk how to optimize those full width background images, and then we also we've built these 5 logos, and we covered that SVG code is great because it's not being counted as a request, so being said, it will not reflect on our site speed, but actually it's not the case. Obviously we want to make sure that everything that falls inside the initial viewport, it's visible to the user, or at least it loads in that very moment your user type the domain.com and hit the enter key. Yeah, so everything that falls in that initial viewport, you want to make sure it's visible. So when we talk about having SVG logos in our initial viewport, or some images or some buttons, we want them to be loaded up, so the user does not wait and wonder, oh my gosh, when this website will load up. So in some cases that's good to have SVG code, but in some cases not so good. Why? Well, when we add an SVG code, it does not count as a request, it's actually being counted as a DOM. Now what means a DOM? DOM basically it's a wrapper for your HTML elements, and if we have big DOMs inside our web page, then Google will give us another warning. Hey, your DOM, it's way too big. And I have right here, guys, a really great article on how to avoid an excessive DOM size from web.dev. I'm gonna make sure I do link this article in the video description. Browser engineers recommend pages contain fewer than 1050 DOM elements. Now this is important, and that's why we want to have this mindset, guys. I'm always talking about this freaking mindset because it's such an important thing. Now we obviously want to have best practices when it comes to building our HTML structure. We want to have less than 32 elements on the body. This means that your body should not have more than 32 sections or 32 div blocks, and then we also want to avoid these 60 children parent elements. Like what this means is inside every children, yeah, or inside every parent you have on your site, this might be a div block inside the section, you don't want to have more than 60 elements. Now this is basically a good practice, and usually in order to avoid this warning, you want to build a simple, clean web page structure. Yeah. And now right here, what we're gonna build today is basically this section. We're gonna cover different heading levels, and we'll build these 3 boxes right here. And as you can see, these 3 boxes have 3 SVG illustrations. This is the first one, and you can see these if I do double click, you can see, oh my gosh, yeah, I need to make a little more zoom right here, and as you can see, it's an SVG. It says path 52. Now that's great, we have 3 SVGs right here, so probably you might think that, okay, I'm just simply gonna make the SVG code minified, and then I'm gonna drop it inside an embed element. But here is the problem. These illustrations, they have a lot of data, they have a lot of paths, they have a lot of points, right? And this means that our SVG code will be big enough to trigger that warning inside Google Lighthouse. So in today's video, we're mostly gonna talk more options to optimize your SVG illustrations, right? But before we dive into those, just keep in mind that those SVG graphics that you have in your header sections, those should be visible in that very moment your client lands on your site, in that initial viewport. Now everything that falls below the fold can be loaded after the initial page load. Maybe a PNG image, JPEG image, doesn't matter. You want to preserve that initial load. Good. Before we would build these three boxes right here, and before we would optimize our illustrations, let's see how much in size all of these three illustrations have. Here's our path 52, and we have around like almost 7 kilobyte. Now that's a lot for an SVG, right? And usually you might think, okay, SVG, but why it's a lot? It's a lot because we have a lot of paths, a lot of curves, a lot of information inside our SVG illustration. Now, what we're gonna do today is we're gonna talk about a really great technique. It's called image spriting. And don't worry, it's available inside the Webflow and it's really easy to do. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a rectangle below or beneath our illustration right here. So as you can see, I'm having this group right here, and let me copy my group so you can see how I've built the elements inside this group. I'm gonna paste it right here. So here is my group. Now inside my group, let me do, I'm clicking right now on Control Shift G. Now if you're on a Mac, you can click Command Shift G to ungroup your group, and I'm basically doing the same. So I'm ungrouping everything I have right here. So the first thing I do have, it's a rectangle. It's white, the same color as my background, yeah, and it have a 1:1 aspect ratio. And you can see this from here. So 199 by 199 pixels. Good. Now the first thing is obviously inside this rectangle I have this sphere or this ellipse, yeah, and then on the top of this ellipse I'm having my path. So being said, I would say that this is the basic structure of my group. Now let me select all the items and click Command G to ungroup them back. Good. And now you have to do the same for all of your illustrations that you have on your site. Now keep in mind that sometimes a PNG version of an illustration might be way less in size than an SVG illustration. I've already made the same for the rest of my illustrations right here from these three boxes. So let me just copy them and paste them right here. Okay, and now what you want to do is make sure you maintain a 1:1 aspect ratio, or at least your illustrations that later on we're gonna combine have the same width and height. So with all of my three boxes right here, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna select all of them and click one more time Command G to ungroup all of these three items. And then let me actually rename this group. So I'm gonna say features. I think features, that's good. Features. And now what we wanna do, right click on our group and export selected. And from this dialog, from the export assets dialog, the format should be PNG. And I want to take a moment and tell you why I went with PNG. So obviously when you have a vector graphic, that vector graphic will be built up on solid colors, maybe some gradients, and maybe some strokes. So that's why we want to choose a PNG, because if we choose JPEG, what JPEG will do is it will flatten out all of the pixel information we have, and we want to make sure we do preserve the pixel information because we talk about an SVG illustration. Good. So with this PNG in mind, let me go right here and see if the destination is all good, and let me click on export. All of our three features combined together only with 19 kilobytes. Now that's still way bigger than our path 52 right here, which only have around like 7 kilobyte. But guess what? Let's open up our magic tool right here, compressor.io, and let's drag and drop our exported sprited image right here. Good. And as you can see, we saved 68% and from 20 kilobytes we went all the way to 6 kilobyte, which by the way is way less than our SVG illustration. And I'm gonna replace my optimized image. So save, yes, replace with my original one. And now let's go back and just make a small comparison right here. So our optimized PNG image that have all of these three images only weighed 6.26 kilobytes. And our SVG illustration already weighed basically the same, but remember, it's just one SVG. So why we actually do this CSS spriting or this image spriting, and by the way guys, I'm gonna have a really great article on that in the video description so you can learn more about CSS and image spriting. But basically what we did is we combined together three images. Now this means that we already saved two requests. Instead of loading three images, we're gonna load one image that have all of these three images inside. And then we're gonna use the object fit property inside the Webflow to simply move our image and stick it to a specific position where it displays the first, the second, or the last illustration. Guess what? It's time to add it inside the Webflow. Okay, so what I'm gonna do right now is I have my Webflow project right here. I'm gonna select my body and I'm gonna type Command A to open up my quick find, and I'm gonna type section. I'm gonna drop a section, and if you guys remember from our previous episode, we've been covering the importance of using a proper tag right here. So obviously we have a section right here, but remember it's still with the tag of a div. We need to go to our element settings, and we need to choose from the tag drop down, we need to choose section, so we can define a section of our HTML document. So we have a section, and let's hit Command Enter to quickly add a class. And then I'm gonna type, I do believe, so again, mnemonic way of naming your classes, and that's gonna be home features. Wonderful. Let me do one more thing. So inside our home features, if you do remember, when we created our design system, we also created the basic container. So I'm gonna hit Command A to open up my quick find back, and I'm gonna type div. I'm gonna drop a div block inside my home features section. And now let me expand my home features section. Let me click on my div block. Let me go to the CSS right here and apply the container class we've created. Now I think we need to add some padding because it's literally this section, it's literally on the bottom extreme. So it's really hard to see or to manage to design this section. Just for the sake of this case, let me see how much padding we have here. So 160, I would say 100 for the moment. This will give us enough room because later on we can change this. But for right now, we need some breathing. Let's think about what elements will go inside this container and how we want to structure this container. Now, we're going back to our Adobe XD design, and guys, if you have a Figma, that's also great. Like, it really doesn't matter what UI, UX application you're using. You can even do this inside of Photoshop if you want. So, good. So let's take a moment. Let's meditate. Yeah, let's meditate on how we should structure our elements inside this container. So we have a text right here, we have our heading, and then we have three boxes. Chances are these three boxes will be a div with the display grid. And then we're also gonna have heading 2 level and maybe just a simple text right here. Yeah. So with this in mind, what this gives us is we're gonna have a container that will have 3 childs. Remember that rule with the excessive DOM size. We don't have sections that have over 60 child elements. And in our case, our section with these 3 boxes only have 3 childs, which is our text, our headline, and our 3 boxes, and then these 3 boxes will be narrowed down inside more elements. But remember, we don't want to go above 60 child elements inside a section. So more opportunities is the first one. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a combo class to my container, because later on we'll set a display to flex vertical. So with my container selected, let's say home features dash W, which stands for wrapper. Hit enter, adding the combo class. Good. Now we can now operate and change this container. It will not affect our basic class container. So with our container selected, Command A to open up our quick find, and I'm gonna drop a text. Good. I'm gonna go back to my container from my navigation here on the bottom. It's a lot easier to select a child or a parent of a specific section directly from bottom from here. So what I'm gonna do with my container selected, I'm gonna drop a heading, and I'm also gonna drop a div block. This div block will be set to display grid, and we'll have our 3 columns, our 3 boxes. Let's start with our top text right here. Let me go to my design, and we have more opportunities. Good. So let's type more opportunities. Now remember, I don't want to click on caps lock and then make more opportunities all caps. No, Google does not love all of these all caps, and we want to make sure we do control all caps by specific typography CSS rules, like I do believe it's text transform uppercase, but you're gonna see in a moment how we're gonna transform these text all caps. Okay, so more opportunities. Let's go to the selector and add a class, and chances are I'm gonna add the same class to other labels. So let's have a look on our design. We have more opportunities right here, which we can count as the section label. Yeah, and let's see what it is. Same thing, it's another section label, and we have one more here. So at this point we'll basically extend our design system. Yeah, good. With this in mind, let's go back to the webflow and let's add a class here. So I'm gonna say section label. Good. Section label. Now I know that I wanted to make everything all caps. That's great. And then let's see the properties right here. So Rubik 16. Let's go back and have a look. It's already 16. The height is all good, all looking good. Rubik width normal. So I'm gonna leave as it is. Obviously I don't want to override with the same properties, because this will create additional CSS rules inside my CSS file. And by the way, one quick thing here, it's a new feature from the webflow. So if you go right here on the bottom where you have this help icon, you have this CSS preview, and if you click on this one, you can see the CSS preview. And now you want to keep this CSS rules as low as possible, because if you have a lot of CSS rules, this means your CSS file will be bigger. For example, look, our heading does not have any custom CSS rules defined, but it still have some CSS rules applied by the Webflow basic design system. Yeah, so this is a really nice tool, CSS preview. It's still in beta, but it gives enough information, or at least you visually can see your custom class and how big it is, and you can remove some properties and make it smaller. But this is again another thing to cover in maybe in later courses. Okay, so we closed our CSS preview, and guys, yeah, you can have a look and learn more about this tool. It's a really great tool to visually see your custom CSS. Now with our section label, what I'm also gonna do is obviously I'm gonna add the margin, and I do believe our margin it's 20 pixels. So let's see. Well, yeah, it's 20 pixels, but we also have the line height, and it's a div block, and I think we can go with let's say 16. At this point, I don't apply any additional CSS rules like aligning the text to the middle. I'm gonna add a combo class and do these transformations. Remember that we're gonna paste this label inside other sections, for example this one or this one, and we want to make sure we have that basic label in our design system, and then we can simply add a combo class to it. Good. Let's talk next about our heading levels. And before I would go to Webflow and choose heading level, I want to talk with you guys the importance of heading levels. In the previous episode, we talked that every page should have only one H1, only one heading, one level. That's important because that's going to be your main page title. That's going to be scraped by Google and indexed, used as the search term keyword. And also this gives you great practice in structuring your site. It's like a Word document. You have a title of your document, and then inside this document you have different heading levels with different sections and body text. So we want to make sure we do the same in web. So we already have our heading 1 level right here inside our header section. Now for all the rest of the sections, there's gonna be heading 2, and all the rest of the headings inside the section should be H3, H4, H6 through H6. Okay, with this in mind, what I know that for this section I'm having 2 headings. I'm having H2 right here, and then I'm having one more heading right here, which is heading 3 level. Okay, good. Let's go back to our Webflow and choose our heading right here. Let's go on and click on this cog icon, this gear icon, to open up the properties, and let's choose H2. Now obviously we'll need to define a class. I think we should go with features dash head, and because chances are we're gonna reuse this heading in other pages, on other sections. And why creating a class for every element on our site when we can reuse it? We do have symbols, but remember those symbols are just components inside the Webflow designer. On the front end they still look as an HTML code. Good. So I'm having my H2 right here, and guess what? Let's copy our text. Let's go back and paste it right here. Good. Now what I'm gonna do is, at this point I don't want to align this to the middle. That's why I do have display flex, which will do the job for me. At this point I don't want to click on this align and set it to center. If I would need to do so, I'd probably add a combo class because I don't want to override the default class. Good. So let's see what else. Rubik, 40 pixels, medium. We go back, we have Rubik, we have medium, and 40 pixels. All looking great. But one more thing here is, as you can see, online course text have another color. So how we can add this as another color? Really simple. We go back to our Webflow, we double click on our text, we enter the text editing mode, and then we're gonna select our online course. And with our online course selected, I'm gonna click on this brush icon, which will wrap my selection in a span. Now a span is basically a div inside your text block. Yeah, good. So we just made online course as a span inside my heading 2, and now I want to add a class. So let's say this will be head span. Good. Chances are that this span will also will reuse it in other sections. And now let's go back and copy the color. So let's select our C letter. Let's go to fill and copy the hex code. Now going back to the Webflow, with our head span selected, I'm going to typography, color, and pasting right here my hex code. Now it's important at this point that we covered, guys, that we need to do optimization as we are building our Webflow page. So with our hex code right here, we need to click on the color and just have a look on the contrast ratio, because if we have low contrast ratio, Google will obviously give us warning inside the Google Lighthouse accessibility panel. Good. Everything is looking fine. This color is good. It has a really great contrast ratio between the foreground and the background. So I'm gonna leave it as it is. Let's see how much padding we have here. So 60 pixels. Good. With this in mind, let's select our div block and let's add a class. This is going to be features grid. Okay, features grid. I'm gonna set the display to grid, so I can build obviously a grid. And I know I have 3 columns. Yeah, I have 3 columns, and now we have 2 rows. Now I don't have 2 rows. I have only one row, so I'm gonna delete 1 row. And if I'm thinking, I also have only 1 column because the rest of the 2 columns are auto-generated. Smart. So I'm gonna delete my 2 columns. I'm gonna leave only 1 column, and then I'm gonna choose direction column. This will save me some CSS rules. Okay, that's important when you optimize, when you build your site. That's why you want to do this hand by hand with optimization. Good. So 1 column, 1 row, but the direction is column. This means that any additional element that will be created inside my features grid will be created as a new column inside this grid. So let's click on done. And now if you remember, we have a 60 pixel margin. So I'm going to do 60 pixel, and maybe 60 is way too much. So let's just ballpark do 36. I love the power of 2, so 36. And inside my features grid, I'm gonna drop my div block. Good. So we have our div block, and now we're gonna add our sprited image. Good. So div block, what we need to do first is obviously to create a class. And since all of them will use the same class, let's think about naming our class. Feature card -w, which stands for proper. And now inside my feature card, I'm gonna have a div block. Good. Now this div block will basically be my image. And with my div block selected, I'm gonna add a class. So that's gonna be feature card img-w, which stands for wrapper. This is basically a box for our image. And what we need to do is, for this div block, we need to set the same width and height we're using in Adobe XD. So if we go back, we can see that basically, let me take you from here. Let me click Command-Shift-G to ungroup my layers. And now if you can see, my illustrations, they live inside a box that is 199 by 199. And yeah, I could easily do 200. I know, guys, but I love to troll people. Okay, that's why we're using 199. Okay. Okay, with this in mind, let's go back to Webflow. So for the width, I'm gonna go with 199, and for the height, same thing, 199. So it's a 1:1 aspect ratio div block. Okay. Now the next thing we want to set is we want to add an image inside this block. So let me scroll so we can see our wrapper right here. And now Command A to open up my quick find. I'm gonna type image. I'm gonna drop my image right here. And now we have to upload our image. So choose image, and I already uploaded. Yeah, I already uploaded the image. So let me actually remove and teach you guys one more time how you should upload this. So okay, delete, we delete, and every asset you do add should be categorized by the page name. So we're gonna click on this magic button, which will expand our asset panel. And I already created the folder named homepage, and inside my homepage I have all of my assets. So guess what? With my homepage folder opened up, I'm gonna go back to my local homepage folder on my Windows, and I'm gonna drag and drop my optimized. Now, if you remember from the previous episodes, we've been talked that we need to set here a width and a height, and the width and the height should be the same width and height as our source image right here. So that's gonna be 597 by 199. I'm gonna hit enter, I'm gonna leave the load as lazy, and for the alt text I'm gonna choose decorative. This image does not have any meaning for me, so I don't want to optimize this image in Google and things like that. So I'm just gonna choose that this image is purely decorative. Good. Now you can see that our image, don't know why, it's basically skewed. What's going on? So in order to fix this, we need to apply a class to this image. So we're gonna apply a class. This is going to be features img, and now we want to do for the width and for the height, we want to do 100% by 100%. Why we're doing this? Because in a moment we're gonna apply the object fit, which is basically the same thing as setting a CSS background, but in our case with a normal HTML image. So width and height, so we said, okay, image, take 100% width and 100% height from our card, which have a fixed width and a fixed height of 199. Let's go back to our image, and right here you see this fit option. So we want to click on the fit, and we're gonna choose none, because obviously we don't want to skew or stretch our image inside our wrapper right here. Good. You see that everything is working. Our image is not anymore skewed or stretched. It's looking nice, but how we will move this image so it displays the second and the third illustration? Really simple. We choose our feature card, and we want to make sure that we click on overflow hidden. Now obviously everything that is outside our feature card imgw should be cropped. Good. With the overflow set to hidden, let's go back to our feature img, and now on this fit panel we have these three dots. Now we're gonna click on these three dots, and we're gonna play with the position. See? Really simple. So let's think. We know it's 199, so let's say 200 pixels. Now we want to move this image to the left and to the right, so we do display the first, the second, and the last image. Good. And now we're gonna use, as you can see, if I'm clicking on this position right here, it's basically changing my position. Now in case you do have a lot of images sprited out, so let's say 4 or 5, just simply divide that value, and instead of using %, use pixels. So for example, I'm having the first image right here, which is a mobile phone. But my second image, as I'm remembering, is a coffee mug. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna type 1 pixel, so I'm switching from person to pixel. And now if I hold the shift key and if I click on the up and down arrow keys, I can basically move through my properties. Yeah, and then I can see that, hey, I just simply need to say minus, and if I know the basic math, that's gonna be minus 200 pixel. Good. And then for the last image, it's gonna be minus 400 pixel. Yeah, so this is our last image, and as you can see, minus 400 pixel. Okay, so I'm gonna set this to 0 because I want to display my first illustration. Good. Now let's go back to our card wrapper right here, and let's see what other elements we have here. So we have our heading 3 level. So guess what? I'm going back to my webflow, and I'm gonna type Command A. I'm gonna hit Command A to open up my quick find, and I'm gonna drop my heading. Good. Now I know that this heading it's H3. Why? Because we have a H2 right here, and we have a H3 right here, and we know that every web page should have only one H1. For all the rest of the sections, the first heading should be a heading 2, and all the rest might be H3, H4, H5, H6. So H3 because we already have H2 right here, so we maintain a good structure of our HTML document. And then let's just simply copy and paste it and see what we have here. We have Kickstarter, so let's copy Kickstarter, and let me go back to the webflow and paste it right here. Remember, do not use caps lock. Let's see what else. I do think we also have a small paragraph text right here. So let me go back to Adobe XD, copy, and paste it right here. Wonderful. We have all the content. Now, what we need to do is we need to apply now the basic styling, and we start with our feature, with our feature card. Now we go back and let's see. So we have some small border right here. It's barely visible, but it's there. And we also have a shadow. So let's first of all let's copy our border color. So now we have a border, this color, and 1 pixel. Going back to my web flow with our feature card selected, I'm gonna paste my color right here. And usually Webflow automatically set the width to 1, but if for some reason it does not work for you, just set the width to 1 pixel. Good. We also have a border radius, and it's 3 pixels, and I think we can go with 5 pixels. Yeah, it's a little bit more rounded, so 5 pixels. And we also have, oh my gosh, let's reload the zoom. We also have some padding inside, so 28 from the top, and let's see, 55 from the bottom. 28 from the top, and we have, well, no, 55, it's not good, the power of 2, so I'm gonna say 54. And well, for the padding on the left and on the right, let's see, I'm choosing the widest element, and just simply holding the Alt key to view the sizes, the padding. So it's 29, 28, it's 28. So let's do 28. Good, wonderful. Now we also need to set this display to flex, and that direction should be vertical. Yeah, all the elements should go vertical. And now we want to align the elements to the middle. Good. And well, we need to think about this. We need to think about this because we also have this button right here, but chances are we're not gonna have the same text for all of these. So what we need to take into the consideration is one thing: how my boxes will look when my text will be dynamic inside. So in order to solve this challenge, there's a really simple structure that you need to do. You need to define what elements will be on the top of this feature card and what elements will be on the bottom. And if you go back to Adobe XD, we can see that we have these elements on the top. So let me actually group them together so you can see the idea. So these 3 elements will live inside a div block, and then we're gonna have this button on the bottom. What this does is every time we're gonna have more content, our button will always stay on the bottom. And that's basically why, guys, you wanted to add groups when you're doing your Adobe XD or Figma design, because you obviously want to see how it will fill inside your Webflow project. Now, okay, we know that our SVG illustration, our heading 3 level, and our text live inside the same div block, so inside the group. So what I'm gonna do is, with my feature card proper selected, right, so let me click one more time, I'm gonna drop a div block. And now this div block, we need to add a class. So this is gonna be feature card top. Good. And keep in mind that you don't want to build a lot of child elements, because later on you'll have this problem with excessive DOM size. So you want to keep the groups as low as possible, but while also maintaining the styling, the responsiveness, the fluidity. My gosh, I think that's a right word, but basically that adaptiveness level. So we have our feature card top, and we're just simply gonna drag and drop our image, our heading, and our paragraph right here. Now of course we'll have to apply the display to flex, yeah, for our feature card top vertical, and align my elements to the middle. Okay, I have my top group for my feature card, and now let's select it back. And if you do remember, we created a button actually. So if we go back to page and we click on design system, it's right here, our BTN. So let's copy it from here. Let's go back to our home, and let's select our feature card wrapper and paste it right here. We want to set some basic gap between our top element and our button. So let me go back to my Adobe XD and see exactly how much we have. So we have a basic of 37, so 37 pixels. Going back to the webflow, and now power of 2, that's going to be, let's actually do 34. So 34. If you'd remember, we previously talked about the fits law, and we say that, hey, buttons should be wide enough so it's easy to click on them. For now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a specific width. So with this in mind, let's add a combo class to our button. I would say btn half. And for the width, I'm going to say, hey, 70%. Let's go with 70%. We'll see in a moment how it feels. So 70%, take 70% off my feature card wrapper. Now good. The only thing we have to add here for our feature card wrapper is obviously a shadow. So box shadow, we scroll all the way to the bottom. Under the effects tab, we have box shadow. Let's click plus. And now I know the color is black, but opacity it's 5. And maybe I can make, so usually shadows are not black, right? They're whether warm color or cold color. So I'm gonna go with the cold color and something like these, and maybe bring more my opacity. Okie dokie. And now the distance should be 3. My blur should be, let's say 10. And then the size, now what size means is the power of your blur sharpness. So obviously I don't want this to be sharp, I want this to be softened, so I'm gonna go negative in value. So this is gonna be -3. Good. Okay, it's looking good. I love how it's looking. Now let's copy this feature card. Let's go back to our features grid, to our parent, and let's paste 2 times. Wonderful. And because we have set, if you do remember, we've set for the feature grid, we set the direction column, and that's why every new element we do paste inside will be added as a new column. So container, we applied a new combo class. Let's say display flex, vertical, and align the items to the middle. For my feature wrapper right here, I obviously want to add a bottom margin, and I want to set a specific tag. So first of all, let's do the margin. So let's select this one and let's see. So 25 margin on the bottom. Let's go back and power of 2. So we're gonna go with 24. Wonderful. 24 here. And now the next thing, let's select, and the last thing, let's select our feature card IMG wrapper, not the image inside, the div block. Let's go to element settings, and from the tag, let's choose figure. Yeah, figure. Now what a figure means, basically it's a div with an infographic, with an illustration, with whatever type of media you have. Now that's a figure. Now that's good to have because again, good practices in site structure, accessibility, right? So we have this paragraph, and now what I can do is why centering this paragraph? So first of all, let's see, is this 16? Yeah, that's 16. So why adding a new combo class to these and just adding additional combo classes to my CSS when we can simply just choose our feature card top, and because both the headline and our paragraph it's centered, I'm gonna go with my feature card top selected. I'm gonna go to typography and align. I'm gonna choose center, and guess what? My headline and my paragraph will inherit the alignment, the text alignment from our feature card top. Feature card head. Yeah. And that's gonna be size, it's gonna be 24. Am I right? It's 24? Yeah, it's 24. And now for the line height, just like in your Word document, 1.5. So that's gonna be 34. Okay, let's copy, let's click on the class, let's copy and apply it right here, and also apply it for the last card. And now let's test how it's working, how our card will work if we'll have more content. So let's assume we add more content right here. So more content, more content, more content. Okay, you already note that my buttons are not aligned. We need to go back to the feature card wrapper, and if you do remember, we only have we only have a div, which is a group of 3 elements which stays on the top, and then we have our button. So with this in mind, what we're gonna do, we're gonna go back to our feature card wrapper, and in our layout right here, instead of justify, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click on space between. Voila. What this will do is it will push my top group on the top, and this will push my button on the bottom. Oh, all right, good rhymes, by the way, good rhymes. Okay, and now you can see it's looking nice, and even if I add more text right here, so let me just copy and paste one more time, it's still looking nice. Good. Okay, now image sprites, we need to move and display the second and the third illustration. So we do select our image, not the wrapper, our image, because the image have the object fit. And now what we need to do is add a new combo class. So let's say feature card, oh my gosh, all caps, no, let's say features 2. Yeah, I'm gonna click on these 3 dots under the fit, and I'm gonna override. So I know it's minus 200 pixels. Good. And now for my last image, I'm gonna add one more combo class, feature 3, and I'm gonna go minus 400. Good. Image spriting is important because in one image we save a couple of images. We save the requests, we optimize, we decompress, we save the load time from our server. That's super important. And even if you need to add an additional class to your image to move it inside the block and display the second, the third, or whatever number of images you have sprited down, on the long run this will help you a lot, because instead of your browser to load 3 different images, it loads one image. Even if that image have 10 or 20 combined together images, that will still be counted as one image, and it will be displayed instantaneously. So when my user will reach this section, all 3 images will appear at the same time in the same moment, because they're all basically one image. Yeah, despite the fact that we have 3 different illustrations right here. Good. Okay, I just wanted to tell you this one more time because this is so important. So yeah, I know that these videos might be a little bit boring, guys, but that's the idea. I'm trying to show you how you can build a better structured web page. Yeah, this is super important for accessibility, it's important for your browser, it's important for your site speed, and it's also a really good skill set to have in your portfolio, right? Like, oh my gosh, I know how to build and how to structure HTML sites. That's it. Remember, Webflow, it's not a website builder, it's a visual code editor. That's super important to keep in mind. All right, thanks so much time for watching this episode. We're gonna talk way more things in the next episode. We'll probably build our mouth to cheek section, that section where the text is on the left and the image is on the right. Yeah, mouth to cheek sections. And if you want to be notified, make sure you do like this video so more people could see it and learn how to optimize their site. And finally, consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell so you are notified on your mobile phone when my next video will be uploaded. I usually upload every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But yeah, just you have that ring, you have that notification bell. Make sure you click on that if you want to be notified and be the first that watch my next episode. Love you all. Bye bye.